Discover how a lonely CFO's incredible gesture for a struggling single mom revealed amazing hope. In the heart of a quiet suburban town, two lives were about to collide in a way neither could have imagined. Sarah, a 35-year-old single mother, hustled day in and day out. At the crack of dawn, she slipped into her stained apron at the local diner, carrying plates like hopes on a silver platter. Every morning, she served breakfast to regulars, each smile a mask over the weight on her shoulders. Nights found her folding clothes at the retail store, her fingers working as hard as her heart. And all the while, she watched over Lily, her radiant daughter with wide blue eyes that sparkled despite her cerebral palsy. But looming heavy in the air like storm clouds was a threat: the landlord's warning that rent was due, and Sarah's paycheck wasn't enough. She worked herself to exhaustion, fatigue wrapped around her like a fog, but the thought of losing Lily's safe haven ignited something fierce within her. With every tiring step back home, fatigue could steal her will momentarily, but the love for her daughter, the anchor of her soul, reignited her strength. 3 miles across town, where the buildings towered like giants, was Jack, a successful CFO who couldn't shake the gnawing loneliness in his heart. Surrounded by wealth and status, he found himself empty, trapped in a world of numbers and spreadsheets. One dreary Thursday, he drove aimlessly past the local community center and felt an invisible pull toward the bright yellow building. Inside, he found Sarah, tirelessly volunteering with genuine laughter amidst the chaos, her compassion a lighthouse in the stormy seas of life. At that moment, something within him flickered to life: hope, buried deep beneath layers of ambition and isolation. "I want to help her," he whispered to himself, but the thought of stepping forward paralyzed him. Instead, he silently arranged for a new apartment, something where Sarah and Lily could breathe easy again, where pride wouldn't choke her spirit. But when Sarah discovered Jack was behind this unexpected gift, defiance surged in her chest. "I don't need your charity." She confronted him, words like daggers that cut through the room. Honor and pride swirled around her, and accepting help felt like drowning in a sea of defeat. "I'm not trying to insult you," Jack replied, frustration and loneliness etched in his voice. "I know what it's like to feel trapped in expectations, to feel nothing but emptiness. I want connection. I see you. I see your strength." Tension crackled in the air, their frustrations bubbling over until something shifted. They opened up, peeling back layers of vulnerability. As they shared their stories, Sarah revealed the scars of judgment she faced as a single mother, and Jack shared his unrelenting solitude, the sacrifices he made for success. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As silence fell around them, they began to see those invisible chains that bound them both. The conversation transformed from confrontation to a spark of understanding. The walls between their worlds began to crack, opening space for new beginnings. That very weekend was the community fundraiser, an event born from combined efforts to uplift one another. Hearts hummed with anticipation, and as Sarah took the stage, her pulse thundered in her ears. Her voice, shaking yet earnest, poured out her story. Jack stood in the crowd, feeling awash in admiration, a part of something beautiful. But would he ultimately be able to break through the barriers that isolated Sarah, or would their connection remain tangled in misunderstanding? With each word that resonated in the room, unresolved questions floated, leaving both of them suspended in the air of unspoken promises and fears. The lights of the community center flickered softly, shadows dancing along the walls as Sarah's voice filled the space. She spoke of struggles, dreams deferred, and the relentless love she had for Lily. Every pause felt heavy, charged with emotion, and Jack's heart tightened at her vulnerability. He could see the way the audience leaned in, captivated, their faces reflecting a blend of empathy and strength. "But I am not alone," Sarah said, her eyes sweeping across the room, connecting with familiar faces. We are not alone. A ripple of claps broke out, echoing her sentiments as she concluded. Relief coursed through her. She shared her truth, and the room had embraced it. Jack watched, his admiration weaving deeper roots. This was who she was: strong, beautiful, and fiercely protective of her little girl. It was thrilling yet terrifying, the realization that his heart was no longer a solitary island. As the night wore on, the fundraiser thrummed with laughter, music, and mingling voices. Jack couldn't help but feel the atmosphere shift. It was electric with possibility. People crowded around Sarah, offering support, encouragement, and even donations. Behind the noise, Jack stood, rooted in thought, weighing his next step. Hey, Jack. You okay? His colleague, Tom, appeared beside him, nudging his side playfully. Yeah, just taking it all in, Jack replied, his eyes still on Sarah. You're smitten, aren't you? Tom chuckled. Never thought I'd see you like this. I want to help her, Jack admitted, almost begrudgingly. But I need to make sure she's okay with it. I can't just swoop in. Why not? It's a good idea, Tom shrugged. Just be honest. It's worked for you so far. But honesty was risky, and Jack felt the weight of that risk pushing down on him. Would Sarah see his intentions as genuine, or would she view them through the lens of charity and pity? Moments shifted faster than Jack could grasp as Sarah stepped away from the crowd, her laughter ringing like chimes under a breeze. She found a quiet corner of the room to catch her breath, her smile lingering even as fatigue washed over her. He seized the moment and approached her. Sarah, he began, his voice low, could we talk for a minute? She looked up, surprise flickering across her face, shadowed by a hint of skepticism. What is it, Jack? Can we step outside? The night air felt crisp against his skin, a contrast to the warmth of the bustling room. Reluctantly, Sarah nodded, and they moved toward the patio where stars twinkled, shining bright against the dark fabric of the sky. You were incredible tonight, Jack started, hoping to catch her in the glow of her triumph. The way you spoke, people need to hear your story. Thanks, she said, arms crossed defensively. But I'm not here to impress anyone. I see that, he admitted sincerely. But there's a way for you to be even stronger. I want to help. Defensiveness flared in her blue eyes. Help? You mean pitiful charity? I don't need your money, Jack. I don't need anything, no. Listen. He cut her off. I want to connect. Be part of your journey. Not out of pity, but because I admire your strength. You inspire me. For a brief moment, Sarah's facade cracked, revealing a flicker of vulnerability. Why? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Jack took a brave step closer, courage woven through every beat of his heart. Because I don't want to be alone anymore either. Maybe, we can support each other. The night air teetered between them, heavy with untold possibilities. But as Sarah searched his eyes, looking for honesty, Jack felt a surge of doubt. Would she trust him? Could he truly break through and find a connection worth fighting for? In the silence, something shifted, leaving them standing on the precipice of a budding friendship, or possibly more. Give me one reason to believe you, she challenged, heart beating rapidly, their worlds hanging in the balance. The question lingered, the night deepening with weight and meaning, as they each held their breath for what was yet to come. What new truths would they uncover together? Jack's heart raced as Sarah's challenge echoed in the quiet night. The glow from the community center cast a warm light on her face, highlighting the mix of uncertainty and hope etched in her features. He could sense the weight of her skepticism, but beneath it, a flicker of something deeper. Because I see you, Sarah, he finally responded, the words spilling out with unexpected urgency. I see the strength it takes to fight every day, the love you have for Lily. I want to be part of that. Not as a savior but as a friend. Someone to share your burdens with. She hesitated, her eyes narrowing slightly as if she was trying to catch a glimpse of the truth behind his words. Finally, her arms dropped to her sides, and she let out a shaky breath. Friendship doesn't come easy for me. Trust is hard. The frankness of her admission struck Jack. He nodded slowly, feeling the significance of her honesty. I get that. But sometimes sharing our burdens can lighten the load. You don't have to do this alone. As they stood there, the air thick with unspoken words, Jack's thoughts shifted to his own life. He had built walls around himself, convinced that vulnerability was a weakness. Yet here he was, ready to break those walls down. Let us start small, he suggested. Lily loves the park. Maybe we can all go together. Spend some relaxed time away from everything. Sarah's brow furrowed, and Jack noticed the flicker of worry in her eyes. Children changed everything. What if she doesn't like you? She asked, her voice tinged with protective instinct that he smiled gently. I'm no monster, I promise. I'm just a guy who thinks you both deserve some happiness. But if it doesn't work out, that's okay too. No pressure. A vestige of a smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. You really think spending time with us will help? Not just for Lily, but for you. I wouldn't suggested if I didn't believe it, he replied. We all deserve connections. Life can feel so much lighter when we find our people. Sarah leaned back against the railing, her gaze drifting to the star-specked sky as she weighed her options. Jack could feel the tension between them. Would she take a chance? After what felt like an eternity, she finally looked back at him, her expression softer. Okay. I'll think about it, she said, her voice calm but laced with uncertainty. That's a start, he said, unable to contain his smile. Just let me know when you're ready. Just then, the vibrancy from inside the community center called to them, laughter and music filtering through the air, reminding them of the hope that filled that space. Let us head back, Sarah said, an edge of determination in her tone. I need to do my part in this fundraiser, too. As they returned to the warmth and buzz of the event, Jack felt a surge of exhilaration. Even if the future was uncertain, this moment was a significant step. The night wrapped around them like a cozy blanket, but right as they re-entered the center, Jack noticed a figure slipping out, a man in a suit, his demeanor tense. He caught Sarah's eye, and a flicker of recognition flared to life. Do you know him? Jack asked, feeling a strange twist of unease in his stomach as the stranger approached. Yeah. Sarah's voice trailed off, her face tightening. That's Lily's father. Suddenly, all the warmth from the night felt like it was being sucked away. Jack's breath caught in his chest. What was about to happen? Would this conversation bring chaos or revelation into their fragile connection? Jack's heart sank as the man drew closer, his tailored suit sharp against the softness of the community center's casual ambience. Sarah's face, once lit with a hint of hope, transformed into a mask of wariness. Jack could feel the tension wrapping around them like a thick fog. Sarah, the man called, his voice cool. I thought I might find you here. She straightened, her posture rigid as she braced herself. Mark. What are you doing here? Mark, that name felt heavy in the air. Jack's mind raced. He wanted to be supportive but had no idea what this unexpected encounter meant. I came to talk about Lily, he continued, his tone clipped. We need to discuss the custody arrangements. Lily's father. Jack's stomach twisted. He could see the conflict brewing in Sarah's eyes, an emotional storm threatening to break. Not here, she replied sharply, with an edge that echoed the pain and history they shared. Mark stepped closer, his eyes narrowing as he searched her face. This is about her future. You can't keep making decisions alone. The words dripped with challenge, and Jack could see Sarah's defenses rising. She was holding on tightly to her resolve. It's not your decision to make anymore, Sarah shot back, her voice trembling with barely concealed anger. You walked away, remember? Jack instinctively moved a step closer to her, the urge to protect lifting him. It's just a conversation, he reminded himself. But something was shifting, and he could feel it radiate from Sarah, an energy that warned him this could escalate. Mark's jaw clenched, his impatience surfacing. I have rights, Sarah. You can't just shut me out of Lily's life because you think you can do it all alone. Jack watched as Sarah's expression faltered, the tight grip on her anger slipping just a bit. The moment hung there, thick and heavy, punctuated only by the laughter and music echoing behind them, a stark contrast to the tension unfolding in their little corner of the world. Maybe I can. Sarah's voice was low, determined, but Jack sensed the vulnerability beneath. I've been doing it for years, Mark. You left a long time ago. Things can change, he shot back, his tone laced with accusation. What is he doing here, anyway? Just another guy playing the hero? Anger flared in Jack's gut. I'm not a hero, he interjected, stepping forward, feeling protective instincts surge. I'm just a friend. And I believe she deserves a chance at happiness, for Lily's sake too. Mark turned to Jack, surprise flickering across his face, but it quickly morphed into disdain. What, you think you can swoop in and fix everything? You don't know anything about us. I know enough, Jack replied, a calmness settling in despite the storm around him. I know Sarah and Lily are worth fighting for, even if that means deciding who gets to stay in their lives. Mark laughed, a hollow sound that echoed around them. A gallant gesture from a guy who doesn't belong in this picture. You have no idea what you're stepping into. Jack could see Sarah's shoulders slump as the fight momentarily left her. She looked torn and exhausted, and it hurt to witness. This isn't what I want in front of Lily, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. We don't have to do this now. Mark's expression softened for a brief moment, but it quickly hardened again as he took a step back. You think this will keep me away? I'll be back. We both know you can't keep things just the way they are without consequences. With that, he turned and walked away, the door swinging shut behind him with a heavy finality. Jack felt the air shift, a weight descending into silence. He turned to Sarah, ready to ask if she was okay, but her eyes glistened with unshed tears. I thought it would be easier, she whispered, her voice trembling. Hey, Jack said gently, reaching out to touch her arm. You're not alone in this. Let us talk it out. But before he could finish, the laughter from inside resumed, pulling their attention back to the buzzing crowd within. Would things ever really be okay? Jack couldn't shake the uncertainty. The night had shifted, and now, both of them had to navigate the new terrain of shared burdens that as they turned to face the vibrant community. Jack wondered if this would be the moment they would find a way through the chaos together, or if the storm was just beginning. Would Sarah trust him enough to let him help, to forge a path not just for herself but for Lily too? The hum of the community center felt distant as Jack and Sarah stood in that heavy silence. Jack's concern deepened as he studied her face, twisted in both worry and fatigue. The laughter around them faded into white noise, replaced by the heartbeat in his own ears. Maybe I shouldn't have come, Sarah finally said, crushing her bottom lip between her teeth. Jack squeezed her shoulder lightly. You deserve to have someone who stands by you no matter what. She shook her head, frustration bubbling. But Mark is something I didn't expect tonight. I thought this was just a fun gathering. I wanted to be normal, just for a moment. Her voice broke, and that shimmer of tears in her eyes made his heart ache. I know it's overwhelming, Jack replied, his voice soft. But you can still have that. We can figure this out together. She looked at him, her eyes swirling with conflicted emotions. Hope and despair competed for the upper hand, painting a picture of a woman caught in the crossfire of her past and future. Why do you care so much? She asked, those words floating between them like a question that needed an answer neither of them could fully express. Because I see you, Jack said plainly, feeling a rush of sincerity. You're so much more than whatever happened with Mark. You're doing your best for Lily. That's what matters. Their gaze held, and for a moment, he thought he saw a flicker of recognition in her eyes. A dawning realization of something bigger than both of them. Then, just as quickly, she looked away, the weight of her reality striking hard. Lily deserves stability, Sarah whispered almost to herself, and I can't promise that with this chaos. Jack lowered his voice, leaning in slightly. What if we focus on the stability you can create? Not by keeping Mark out, but by showing him you're ready to negotiate. You can't fight him alone, Sarah. And you don't have to. She hesitated, and he could see the walls she had built starting to tremble. Every fiber of her being seemed to weigh the possibility of including Mark, yet that hesitation lingered like a shadow. He's always had a way of turning everything into a battle. Then let us turn it into a conversation, Jack suggested, feeling a swell of urgency. You have a voice. You've got the strength. Trust that, even when it feels like you're losing the ground. Her brow furrowed, contemplating his words. He wanted more than anything to break through her uncertainty and show her the power of connection, the reassurance that they could face it all together. After a long pause, she looked up at him, her eyes brightening with something he wanted to believe was trust. Maybe you're right. Maybe I need a strategy, something to shift the dynamic. But it's scary. I'll be here, Jack said firmly. We'll navigate it together. You're not alone. Sarah nodded, a hint of resolve replacing the turmoil on her face. She cast one last glance at the parting doors where Mark had exited, and Jack saw her exhale, a deep breath of liberation mixed with anxiety. As they turned back to the crowd, the music pulsed anew, and the laughter felt lighter now. In that moment, Jack believed they were taking the first step toward reclaiming not just normalcy but a future, however uncertain. Let us get some ice cream for Lily, Jack suggested, hoping to spark a moment of joy to blend into the seriousness of the night. Sarah smiled softly, and Jack felt a sense of warmth swell in him. Maybe there was room for light amid the chaos. As they made their way toward the kitchen, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that Mark was entirely finished with them, that this storm might not be over yet, but tonight, just tonight, they could hold on to a sliver of hope together. Little did they know, a new challenge loomed, one that would test everything they had just begun to build and change their lives forever. As they entered the bustling kitchen, the sweet smell of vanilla and chocolate swirled around them, pulling at memories of simpler days. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and friendly chatter, yet to Jack and Sarah, it felt both warm and distant. Jack moved toward the freezer, lifting the lid to reveal a dazzling array of ice cream flavors. His heart raced as he turned to Sarah, who was still lost in thought. What do you think? Chocolate chip cookie dough? Or maybe mint chocolate? Her face softened with the question, and for a moment, the heaviness seemed to lift. Oh, definitely cookie dough, she replied with a small, grateful smile. As he scooped the ice cream into bowls, Jack quietly admired Sarah's resolve, the way her spirit had flickered just moments ago. It reminded him of the iridescent light that glimmered just before a storm, a hesitant promise of clarity amid the chaos. They found a small table tucked away in the corner, and as they sat, a sense of calm washed over them. Sarah watched the children from the community, their laughter echoing as they chased one another in an impromptu game of tag. The sight stirred something deep within her, an instinctual longing for Lily to be part of such joy, to bask in moments free from worry. What do you think she's doing right now? Sarah asked, her voice unsteady. Jack looked up, a little surprised by the sudden emotion in her tone. I bet she's imagining all the fun you two are having, he answered, his heart aching for her unspoken fear of missing out on a normal childhood. A brief silence enveloped them as Sarah took a deep breath. I just want to make her happy, you know. To feel safe, secure. And you are. Even when you feel uncertain, you fight for her, Jack assured her, his voice earnest. He pushed away his own doubts about the tenuous path ahead, putting all his energy into grounding Sarah at that moment. You're her North Star. Her gaze faltered, and the words they shared earlier hung heavy between them. She had to confront Mark again, something that evoked dread within her. It wasn't simply about negotiating, it was about exposing her vulnerabilities. And then a ripple ran through the room, the sound of raised voices pulling their attention like a magnet. Jack's heart dropped as he turned to see Mark stride angrily through the doors of the community center, his eyes scanning the room until they locked onto Sarah. "What is he doing here?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper, panic flickering in her eyes. "Sarah," Jack cautioned, sensing her heart rate spike. "Just stay close," she whispered back, her demeanor shifting into a protective stance, ready to face whatever was coming. Jack swallowed hard, determination settling in his chest. If he had to, he would stand between them like a dam holding back a flood. Mark crossed the room with a purpose, confidence radiating off him like heat from the sun. Behind his exterior, Jack sensed a brewing storm, not the kind to sweep through and leave hope in its wake. "Sarah!" Mark called out, gripping the attention of those nearby. "We need to talk." Her breath hitched as she glanced back at Jack, uncertainty flooding her expression. She was at a crossroads, with the weight of her past colliding with her present. "Just breathe," Jack encouraged, the urgency rising as he shifted his chair slightly closer to her. This was the pivotal moment, the moment where everything could change. Would she find the courage to confront him with everything she had just begun to reclaim? Jack could only hope that together, they could weather this storm and emerge intact. But before that could happen, the tension in the air thickened, and he braced himself for whatever was to come. Little did they know, this conversation could unravel their newfound connection and force them to confront the very things they had sought to avoid. Mark stood there, arms crossed, his glare focused entirely on Sarah. Other voices in the room faded into mere whispers, as if the world had narrowed to just the three of them. Jack could feel the tension coiling like a tight spring in his chest. He glanced around, catching the sidelong looks of curious onlookers. They, too, sensed the looming confrontation and strained to catch every word. "Sarah," Mark continued, tone sharp, "this isn't the place for this. We need to talk about Lily. Now." Jack felt an instinctual urge to protect. "She's not going anywhere with you, Mark," he shot back, his voice steady but firm. Mark turned to him, a flash of surprise cutting through his anger. "This doesn't concern you, Jack. It's between me and Sarah." "It concerns me because I care about her and Lily," Jack replied, determination hardening his resolve. He glanced at Sarah, who looked like she was wrestling with herself, torn between fear and the desire to stand her ground. "Please, Mark," Sarah finally said, her voice trembling but determined. "This is not how we should handle things." He stepped closer, unyielding. "And how do you think we should handle it? You've been avoiding me. You think this can just go away? You're being selfish." The word hung in the air, a weight that pushed Sarah backward in her seat. Jack's heart sank at the fresh wave of vulnerability etched on her face. But there was something in her eyes that sparked resilience, too. She took a deep breath, her gaze settling on Jack for a brief moment, grounding her. "Selfish is not wanting Lily to feel the confusion of having her father disappear from her life," she said, matching Mark's intensity, her voice growing stronger. "I'm doing what's best for her, even if it's hard." Jack could see the shift. He leaned in, trying to lend her strength through his presence. Mark's facade cracked slightly, confusion and anger flickering across his features. "You think keeping her away from me is best?" "It's not about keeping her away," Sarah countered, her passion igniting. "It's about protecting her from instability. You think I want to fight like this? You don't know the first thing about what's good for her." In that moment, Jack felt something shift inside of Sarah. She was standing up for herself in a way he hadn't seen before. She was not just a mother but a warrior defending her child's happiness. Mark opened his mouth, ready to retaliate, but then hesitated. The room was silent, the energy palpable. Jack's heart raced, hoping this conversation could forge a new path for them. "Sarah," Mark began, expression shifting into something quieter. "I just want to be involved. I miss her, too." Jack expected more venom, but Mark's vulnerability disarmed him. Was this an attempt to connect, to find a middle ground, or just another tactic to manipulate? Jack studied Mark's face closely for sincerity, unsure if the change in tone was genuine or a ploy. "Then give us space to figure this out," Sarah pleaded, her voice softening, the fight still alive in her eyes but touched by compassion. "Be the father we need in a positive way, not an aggressive one." The force in the room wavered, caught in an unresolved tension. Jack could feel the possibilities unfurling, but uncertainty gnawed at him. Would this conversation lead to healing, or just deeper wounds? As the silence lingered, Jack looked from Sarah to Mark, waiting for a response that could change everything. All he could do was hope for clarity amid the chaos, aware that whatever came next would demand everything from them. Then, Mark finally took a step back, uncertainty clouding his expression. Maybe you're right." But before Jack could react, the door swung open, and in walked a familiar face, one that neither expected, but could mean trouble. What does this sudden appearance mean for Sarah and Jack? Could it flip the dynamics entirely? The heavy door creaked as it swung open and revealed Jenna, the last person anyone expected at that moment. Her presence cut through the charged atmosphere like a sharp breeze, pulling all eyes towards her. Jack felt his heart drop. Jenna was Mark's sister but also a longtime friend to Sarah. Her arrival was likely to complicate everything. "Hey, what's going on?" Jenna's voice was both casual and pointed, eyes shifting between the three of them. There was a hint of confusion behind the warmth in her tone, as if she had unknowingly walked into a storm. "Perfect timing, Jenna," Mark said, his irritation evident. "We're trying to figure out a way forward for Lily." Jack felt the walls closing in as he glanced back at Sarah, catching the flicker of apprehension that crossed her face when she saw Jenna. In that moment, she was no longer just battling Mark, she was faced with someone who understood their history and had the power to sway opinions. "Do you think this is how you're going to get involved with Lily?" Jenna asked slowly, weighing her words. Her gaze was sharp, cutting through the tension. "Because if this is your definition of involvement, I'm worried, Mark." Mark opened his mouth to retort, but Jenna raised a hand to interrupt him. "Sarah's right. You need to step back and consider what it means to be a father without causing chaos in her life." Jack felt a surge of gratitude for Jenna. She was fiercely protective, and the support she offered was like a lifebuoy in rough waters. He wanted to scream encouragement, but the moment was fragile. Mark's gaze hardened at his sister's words, but Jack sensed a flicker of uncertainty, realizing he was no longer standing alone. "I know I need to make changes," Mark said finally, his voice quieter, but a hint of defiance lingered. "But I don't know where to start." "Then let us figure it out together," Jenna softened, stepping closer to him. "We can support Sarah and work together for Lily's sake. But fork in the road means you need to let go of the anger." The way Jenna spoke made hope stir in Jack's chest. Maybe this was the turning point, they all needed a chance to mend broken bridges instead of burning them. "Sarah, I know it looks messy," Jenna turned to her, "but we're family, and we'll figure it out." Jack watched Sarah take a deep breath, hesitating for a moment. Her expression was a blend of relief and caution. "We have to approach this with Lily's best interest at heart. It can't be about our past." Mark seemed to be absorbing her words, processing more than he had moments ago. He looked lost, just as scared as anyone else in the room. Jack felt a bittersweet pang realizing that beneath his anger, there was a desperate longing for connection. "Is this really possible?" Mark murmured, glancing at Jack, then back at Sarah. "To navigate this without hurting her?" Jack found himself unexpectedly siding with Mark's vulnerability. "It's possible if we're willing to be honest and to listen," he replied, feeling the weight of the moment. The room was filled with a tenuous lightness, an inkling of cooperation breaking through the past. Yet just as the tension began to unwind, a mobile buzz broke the air. Jenna's phone vibrated heavily in her pocket. The smile slipped from her lips as she retrieved it. She grimaced. I need to take this," she said reluctantly, stepping away. But can we please pretend to take this seriously? Jack looked at Sarah, who watched Jenna go with a frown. What now? Sarah whispered, vulnerability leaking back into her voice. I think we need to be prepared for more surprises, he replied, tension coiling back in. And as they leaned in closer, a sudden shout echoed from the other side of the room, sending the crowd into a stir. What message had just disrupted their fragile truce? Was it a warning or a glimmer of hope? Jenna's voice cut through the noise of the crowd, demanding attention. As she stepped out of the room, the atmosphere shifted from one of tension to sheer confusion. Jack kept his gaze locked on Sarah, sensing the storm brewing behind her calm exterior. The shout that erupted from across the room hung in the air, almost like a promise of chaos. Did you hear that? Sarah's eyes widened, her earlier resolve faltering. What was that about? Jack felt a knot tighten in his stomach. I don't know, but it could be important. He moved toward the door, motioning for Sarah to follow. Mark, still processing Jenna's intervention, was left behind. But as Jack stepped into the hallway, the noise grew louder. It was like the heartbeat of a crowd feeding off the tension in the air. As they rounded the corner, they spotted a cluster of people gathered around a figure at the center, an argument unfolding. A man, face flushed with anger, gestured vaguely as others watched with wide eyes. What is happening? Sarah asked, her voice tinged with unease. Jack felt her grip tighten around his arm as they approached. They're talking about some changes, a woman near them whispered, barely keeping her voice down. Something about the job cuts and benefits. It's getting real ugly. Dread washed over Jack. The company had been struggling, and he had heard murmurs of budget cuts. Such news could cause ripples of panic, especially for people like Sarah. She had worked hard to keep her head above water, and the last thing they needed was another blow. Just then, a woman with tear-streaked cheeks pushed through the group and stumbled back. They're cutting the benefits for single parents. How can they do this? Jack watched as horror flashed across Sarah's face, realizing the implications of that announcement. Oh no, she whispered, the color draining from her skin. That's not good. He thought of Lily's needs and the small comforts Sarah struggled to provide. It made Jack's heart ache to imagine the fallout of such a decision. The growing uncertainty clung to him, pressing down like a heavy weight. Mark, whose presence had lingered like an unseen ghost, caught up to them moments later. He caught the tail end of the chaos, and a flicker of something unreadable flashed across his eyes. What is going on? They're talking about cuts, Sarah breathed, her voice barely above a whisper, panic lacing her words. If they cut benefits, it could ruin everything for us. Mark looked at her, truly seeing her for the first time since this conversation began. The anger that clouded him earlier seemed to dissolve, replaced by compassion. We'll figure it out. I promise. There was firmness in his voice as he stepped closer, inching toward a promise of partnership. But as they turned back toward the commotion, Jenna returned, her expression serious, eyes gleaming with worry. We need to do something. We? Mark echoed, a bitter edge creeping back in. Yes, we, Jenna shot back, passion burning in her gaze. For Lily. For all of us. We can't just let this happen. Tension tightened the air again as a fresh shout rang out, something about gaining clarity, about keeping hope alive in the darkest moments. Jack's heart raced. This was not just about them anymore. It was about everyone, every single person taking a stand. The moment felt heavy with possibility, yet tinged with despair. Could they really band together to make a difference? Jack's throat tightened around questions he didn't have answers to, but he took a step forward, ready to face it all. As they moved back toward the crowd, Jenna turned to them, her voice resolute. We challenge this decision. We fight for everyone. In that crowded hallway, hope fought against despair. And with every heartbeat, the future felt like a loaded question that yearned for an answer. What exactly were they all willing to risk to protect what they loved? The air was thick with uncertainty. An electric charge surged through the crowd as Jack, Sarah, Mark, and Jenna stood at the threshold of a new chapter. Jack's heart pounded in his chest, the mounting tension and fear swirling around them like a tempest. He glanced at Sarah, who looked both vulnerable and defiant. They were about to face the culmination of everything: the struggles, the fears, the intertwined paths they had walked. The community center pulsed with life, but within that chaos, they were searching for clarity. "Let us do this together," Jenna shouted, her voice rippling through the crowd like a beacon. "We deserve better. We deserve a voice." The faces around her lit up with newfound courage, small murmurs of agreement becoming a roaring swell. Jack felt the warmth of uplifted spirits, and he turned to Sarah, urging her to let that moment sink in. It was a call to arms for all the mothers, fathers, and families bearing the brunt of indecision, just as Sarah had so long. Even one small act can cause a ripple. Jenna pressed, her eyes shining bright with purpose. "If we stand up now, we can change the narrative." Mark nodded, stepping closer to support his sister. Jack watched as he transformed from a figure of strife to one striving for change. "Let us approach this as partners, Sarah," he said, the bitterness in his voice softened. "Let us trust each other for Lily's sake." Tears of frustration brimmed in Sarah's eyes, but this time they shone not just with worry, but with hope. "I just want what's best for her," she admitted, vulnerability spilling forth into the open air. "I don't want to fight. I want to collaborate." Jack reached for Sarah's hand, giving her a reassuring squeeze. Their fingers intertwined, the press of their palms serving as an anchor amidst turmoil. "We can do this together. We can lead by example." And just like that, a spark ignited. The crowd began to chant, voices rising in unity. "We are not alone. We are not alone." Jack's heart soared at the unexpected alliance forming before him. He felt the strength of community wrapping around them, lifting their spirits, lives intricately woven together, sharing burdens, and creating a scaffold of support. As the chants grew louder, Jenna faced the gathering, her authoritative voice breaking through the noise. "Let us mobilize. We can petition, we can advocate. We'll not only fight for ourselves but for the future of this community." The energy buzzed electric, pulsing through them. Sarah turned to Jack, a radiant smile breaking her anxious facade. "This is bigger than us," she said, her face glowing with renewed spirit, eyes brimming with sultry determination. "We can make change happen." Together they stepped forward, joining the crowd, raising their fists into the air. A wave of laughter and hope bounced around them as they gathered commitments from individuals eager to stand up against the impending cuts. Jack felt a rush of warmth igniting his soul. This was not just about Sarah and Lily anymore. They had awoken something more profound, the courage to stand and fight for each other. In the weeks that followed, they poured their hearts into mobilizing their community. They planned meetings, developed strategies, pressed local leaders, and gathered support from families. Each connection strengthened the fabric of their coalition. Every small victory, a step toward a brighter future, and amidst all the chaos, new bonds formed between Jack, Sarah, Mark, and Jenna, transforming them from strangers into something intricate and meaningful. Jack and Sarah strolled through the park with Lily on sunny afternoons, laughter flowing and blooming friendships piling on top of their previously hidden griefs. Mark began to find ways to earn his place, driven by the budding relationship he was developing with Sarah and the limits he was willing to push for Lily's happiness. It felt like a healing was taking root. Fast forward a few months into that journey, the day finally arrived when they reached an agreement that preserved benefits for single parents. The celebration was unlike anything Jack had ever experienced, a collection of smiles, shared joy, and heartfelt gratitude. As they looked out across the community center, now buzzing with laughter and sound, Jack raised his glass, capturing everyone's attention. To bravery, unity, and most importantly to new beginnings. The cheers erupted, resonating through every corner, each word a testament to what they had achieved together. Sarah beamed, tears of joy streaking down her cheeks as she held Lily close, both glowing like sunshine. They had faced the storm and come out on the other side, hand in hand, hearts full. Jack glanced over at Sarah, the light in her eyes reminding him that hope reignites in the most unexpected of places. Perhaps, just perhaps, two lonely souls could find warmth in battling the storms of life together, hand in hand, heart to heart. You need to subscribe now to witness more incredible transformations. This is the moment to show your support. Just hit that like button now and help feed the algorithm. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this ending. I want to hear from you. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this change.